Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Von Duprin 970872. This is a scalp plate that is used on a Von Duprin 7500 series mortise body, which would be for a mortise exit device, obviously. They call it a scalp plate. I might think that it should be called an armor front. Von Duprin obviously knows better than I do. They invented the exit device, so we're going to defer to their expertise on the matter regarding the questionable name. But if it was a mortise lock, it would certainly be an armor front. Maybe it's a scalp plate on when it's an exit device. A scalp plate is literally, or an armor front. Well, a scalp plate is really just a covering. You'll see the term scalp plate applied to the face of cylinders, that very thin amount of brass that covers the body of the cylinder. That's just a decorative piece, really. It's called the scalp plate. Well, when you have a mortise body, you'll have this relatively thin piece of material that will cover the edge of the mortise cassette. The edge of the mortise cassette has access to the inner workings of the mortise body, and in particular the screw or screws that hold the cylinder into the lock case itself. So what they'll do is they'll use an armor front, or in this case a scalp plate, to cover access to that. When you have this, you could certainly have, and maybe that's inherently the difference here. Yeah, no, there's screws here for holding the potential for mortise cylinders on. Yeah, so the purpose of the armor front or scalp plate is that it is a cover piece that would otherwise prevent somewhat easy access to the head of the screws that would hold the cylinder or cylinders in, that screw or screws, the screws that hold the body in as well. If you didn't have this plate covering that material, you might be able to work to bypass the lock as a result. Mortise locks that are from 100 years ago and well before that, you would see them with incredibly thick pieces of iron on the face of the cylinder, on the cassette body itself, the mortise body itself. There are also catalogs that feature an armor front design and then that solid thick front design. The disadvantage of that solid thick front design is that you could get a tool possibly onto the head of that screw that is holding the mortise cylinder in. So if you can loosen that, you can back that cylinder out and then manipulate the lock to gain entry. An armor front works to defeat that sort of concept because, let's say that you can tamper with the head of the screw. Okay, that's fine. But when that bolt is sticking out, engaged in the strike, it's not going to be so easy to get that plate to move very much. Okay, you can't really get it moved. So that's the point of this, and that's why I see it called as an armor front, or an armored front. Width is 1.25 inches. The overall height is 8 inch. That's a standard mortise cassette face. The 7500 is stamped right on the front of the unit. This is US19. That means black. I'm going to go with this being a brass base material, which I don't know what we would call it in that case, if anything. Let's take a look. I have a chart to the BH. Actually, let's do this. Let's switch to the camera view, to the screen view. We'll take a look at this item where it comes from in the parts manual, and maybe we have a BHMA code for black over brass. This really has to be some sort of an oil rubbed type process, except that they must simply go darker with it to get black. Let's take a look, though. Let's take a look. Here we go. Now, this is indeed the item that we are looking at, the 970872 scalp plate. Shows it here in the exploded parts drawing. Okay, 7500 series manual. Before we do that, let's copy the part number. Oh, the US19. Let's take a look at that first. Under Contact Us, we have a link to Video Gallery. If you get to page 2, currently anyway. Do a find function for on your keyboard for BHMA. The BHMA, the Builders Hardware Manufacturers Association. Finish chart. Having a little trouble with Chrome lately. It's not unusual, actually. Okay, here we go. So US19 they're calling it. Okay, yeah. So 622. Well, that's coded. That's going to be. I'm going to guess that that's powder coated. There's two matches to US19. 631 over flat black. 631 over steel, a flat black coated. And then, of course, our 622 finish, flat black coated over brass or bronze. So I see why they're calling it US19, because they don't have to declare much more about it than the fact that it's a black finish. This is clearly brass or bronze, but I'm going to stop short of saying that this is a coated finish. This might be a process like oil rubbed. Anyway, it's pretty faithfully black. There's no question about that. Let's close this up and move back to our item that we are looking at. Okay, and here it is. Now, let's copy. Let's open up our manual. And we're having the same trouble, of course. Okay. Part 13, obviously. Scalp plate. Okay, so ours is clearly made of brass. 970872. Interestingly enough, part 3 is listed as a separate product. Von DUPRIN did send it with the scalp plate, so be mindful that they included the screws. However, I would definitely not count on them doing that. I would, in fact, order those screws separately, and we'll put a note there for, put a note on the order to be sure to say, need only 2 screws per scalp plate. We don't want the factory to double ship those. This client did not add a line item to the order for the screws, part number 3. So, although they sent them, we're going to send them to the client. However, be sure to specify if you need those screws, because according to this drawing, it is clearly a separate part number. Okay. More to the parts manual here, etc. Obviously, some electric lock and unlock bodies are here as well. Some micro switches, probably for determining latch bolt position, would be one. Latch bolt position would be one. What else would they need a micro switch for on this lock? I would think a micro switch would be used for the deadlocking tab, and I'm just guessing. I'd have to look at the manual. The deadlocking tab may have a correlation to basically telling the lock, I'm in the locked position, go ahead and let me lock. That might be the mechanical trigger on the micro switch. But also, sensing the position of the latch bolt may do that as well. I did allow my curiosity to get to me to determine what those switches were. Under installation, they give us certainly the answer. They have an auxiliary bolt monitor and then a trim monitor. So you would need a couple of micro switches for that. And getting to the manufacturer's catalog, they do here indicate, of course, that they have E7500 contains a single pole double throw signal to monitor the outside trim, and a second single pole double throw signal switch to monitor the latch bolt. So that's what's happening with that. Your trim on the 7500 is going to, of course, work on the body itself to get the latch bolt retracted, and therein is where they can hook the micro switch into the greater system. Okay, so curiosity now cured. There's a link here to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Von Duprin products that we sell. And this page will list not only all of the Von Duprin products that we sell, okay, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the current product catalog and other several encyclopedic documents that are here, such as a technical manual, common part manual, windstorm solutions, okay, templates, installation instructions, handy documents, fun video, obviously pertaining to exit devices, etc. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Okay, in conclusion, that's your scalp plate for a 7500 series lock body. Obviously, you have to select the finish that you want this in. This, of course, again, is black. Black is a very popular color now, 2018, 2019, 2020. Who knows for how much longer. Seems to be continuing. I wouldn't say it's cresting, but people continue to order black. Factory lead times are usually still a case, but some people have, read the tea leaves on black and have material more readily available. Not only exit device scalp plates, but of course the trim that would go along with it, the device itself, possibly. Von Duprin's sister companies, Schlage and LCN, Glenn Johnson, they are Ives. They are addressing the request for black from the marketplace as well. Speaking of Von Duprin and its sister companies, that is a group of people who excel when it comes to responsiveness, regarding technical support inquiries. A great group of people with your Schlage, your Von Duprin, your LCN, primarily. The other sister companies would be Zero, Glenn Johnson, Ives, Dormatic, Falcon, several others. Who knows how many. If you have any questions on the Von Duprin 970872 scalp plate or any other Von Duprin product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.